With the first week of training camp in the books for the Chicago Bulls, on today's episode, I want to kind of recap a lot of the positives that have come out so far in training camp and talk about some of the things that we haven't heard very much about. I'm not quite concerned about it yet, but I do want to put it on everybody's radar that we haven't really heard or got an update on a couple of things. All that plus the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And I want to kind of recap the positives and things that come out of the first week of training camp for the Chicago Bulls. And there's been a lot of them. And, as I've always said before, though, this is where you should be hearing positive things about your team. Every team around the NBA. I don't care how bad the outlook on your season is. If you're going into training camp and you're hearing bad things, then that's a sign that this season is going to be an extremely struggle for you. So the fact that we've heard a lot of good things from the Chicago Bulls, it should not be a surprise to anybody. Now, I know some of my more pessimistic Bulls fans are always going to try to, they're always going to have their look and view on this Bulls team and how much they doubt and things like that. And that's fine. This franchise has earned that, right? This isn't anything against you guys at all, but there have been quite a bit of positives. And then there have been some things that we haven't really heard much about, but we'll see soon enough with the Bulls playing their first preseason game on Tuesday. So I want us to get into the positives. One of the first big positives, and this is something that everybody was kind of looking at coming into the season, is Lonzo Ball has basically been a full participant. Like, he's participated in contact every day. Now, he hasn't gone as much through the contact as the other players. They've been very restrictive on how much they've had him out there during the contact portions of practice, but he's been out there all 4 days of practice. He's been out there for the contact portion of the practice to some extent. That's a really good thing. And they kept saying that to see how his body responds before they decide for the next day, And so it seems like Lonzo Ball's body's really responding very well to being in training camp, to going through contact. Him even saying that this is the best that he's felt after yesterday's practice. So those are all good things for Lonzo Ball, good things for the Chicago Bulls overall. We still don't know exactly what Lonzo's role is going to be on this team. And in no way is he going to be starting, but that does not mean that he can't have a really big role. And one of the things I've really been kind of, my mind has come along to, as well as how Lonzo can affect the game, it's his basketball IQ and his passing. A Lonzo Ball that can be out there on the court. It doesn't matter if he's out there 12 minutes, 14 minutes, 16 minutes. Even if he can't defend like he used to, even if he can't get the lift on his jump shot, which throws it off like he used to, his ability to pass the ball and his basketball IQ that can help him either the offense or defensive side, talking about what the other team is doing, that could help this Bulls team, especially a young Bulls team that's trying to increase their basketball IQ and can't really isolate, right? You look at Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, Modest Bucelis as of right now, right? These aren't isolation scores. So to have a guy with Lonzo Ball's passing ability out there with him and Lonzo and Ayo Dosunmu, that could be a really good thing. Like I said, no matter what the minutes number that Lonzo Ball plays next season, he can help the young guys. And I think that supportive role, and then as he goes on and his body adjusts and he adjusts to being back on the NBA court, add more and more things to Zoe. And so I think that's really good so far to hear from Lonzo Ball. The next thing, Josh Giddey's progress and chemistry with Zach LaVine. His own injury progress in regards to not being out there for the contact portion on the first practice, doing some limited contact in the second practice, and now being a full participant in the Bulls scrimmage. They ran a whole scrimmage in Friday's practice with referees and everything out there, and Giddey was a participant in that. So that's a really good thing, even though Giddey has been very consistent in saying that he'd be ready by the start of the season. He could play now. They were just being cautious with him. And then the chemistry with Zach LaVine, right? The chemistry with Zach LaVine is a really big part to get the best out of both their games. I'll say this, Zach LaVine has never played with somebody who can create open shots like Josh Giddey. Now, he's been out there with a passer like Lonzo Ball, but Lonzo Ball, even at his best, never created the open shots that Josh Giddey has, even at Josh Giddey's worst. That's not to compare the players. Lonzo Ball at his better was still a better player. Let me be clear there. We'll see what Lonzo Ball is going forward. Not to trigger the Zoe fans, but Josh Giddey and his ability to create those open looks for players, I've said it before. He created tons of open three-pointers for Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander there, but they hit that at 32% and 36% on open threes. Zach LaVine is a much better catch and shoot open 3-point, 42%. So, the chemistry between those two guys is a really big and important part of the Chicago Bulls offense working. There's another piece to that I'm going to talk a little bit about more in my things we haven't heard about. But there's another piece to that to really make this offense as potent as it can be. But I think it's really good that Josh Giddey has progressed and that he's developing that chemistry with Zach LaVine, and Zach even saying, hey, everybody got to have their hands ready. That there was a time that Josh Giddey's already hit a couple of players in their face because they weren't ready for the open pass. You want everybody ready. And so if Josh Giddey's getting guys open looks like that, and while I did say that Lonzo was a better passer in a way, not playmaker as Josh Giddey, listen, Josh Giddey is creative with the passes as well. That's the thing. Lonzo Ball is a really creative passer. And one thing that Josh Giddey can do as well as Lonzo Ball is passing from the inbound spot. So that's going to be really something to see and could be, as this Bulls team's offense is trying to change, could really be potent for this team. And that brings me to my next positive so far. Billy Donovan instilling the new offense and even changing them to operate with a 14-second shot clock initially to understand the tempo that they need to play with. Billy Donovan said for years, AK has said for years, that they want this Bulls team to play faster. We've never really done it, right? And like I've said many times, I want to be clear here. Playing faster does not mean that you're successful, right? It's just that you want to play a style that better benefits the skill set of the players that you have out there. And we got a lot of players that can thrive in a more up-tempo style, but it can't be just that, right? How are you moving without the ball? How are you slashing to the rim? How are you doing those cuts? Those are another important part in the half court. And we'll see if Billy Donovan is instilling those things. But I think that is a positive that not only is he preaching the quicker pace yet again, but he's putting something in practice to highlight that, right? And that's something that we're trying to do. Also, a positive that I got to give Billy Donovan up until this point is that he's turned the defense over to Wes Unseld Jr., right? That shows a level of awareness, or like my pessimistic Bulls fans will say, or he's trying to pass the buck for a team that he already has said multiple times is going to be bad defensively, to another coach. We'll see what happens there, but I do like that he's turned it over, right? And Billy Donovan has coached some solid defenses. When you look at, the years that the Bulls were in the top 10, I think we were even, top 5, top 6, another one of those years. We didn't always have the best defensive personnel, but we were able to play a really good defensive style. But if Billy Donovan's seeing something to add another perspective to the defense of this team and to bring in a new voice to try to coach this team a little bit differently, maybe get more, maybe he saw that, hey, I can only get so much out of this team defensively. Wes Unseld Jr. could get more out of them. And so, and the thing is, I want to say that so far, right? Because we don't know. This could be just a thing to Billy Donovan to focus on the offense, and then in training camp, Wes Unseld's focus on the defense. But when the season starts back, Billy Donovan's still calling those defensive play calls. He's still drawing up those defensive schemes. So I'll give him the credit on it so far, but we'll see how it plays off once the games start being played. Another positive for the Bulls, Patrick Williams, a full participant. We got some concerning news the week before training camp opened that Patrick Williams had not, been on 5-on-5. He had a setback with his injury. It turned out that the injury had nothing to do with this, or it wasn't on the foot he had surgery on. So that was the thing. And then he said he'd been doing 5-on-5 for weeks. And then he came right into here doing 5-on-5. So Patrick Williams, for some of the concern that we had and heard before the opening of training camp, for him to be a full participant, basically the full training camp, that's a really good thing. And like I said before, you want everybody healthy at the start of this season. You want preseason, I'm not really too worried about. If Lonzo sits, if Giddey sits preseason, I'm really not too worried about that. But by the season starting, I think we're playing 5 preseason games, so maybe by the last 2, right? You want to really make sure that you get your full complement of guys out there. But, that's another thing that we're looking at. So really positive in that. Next up, Jalen Smith having a clear and defined role that also fits his skill set and the play style that fits him best. Him coming in and saying the things he needs to do. Energy, running the floor, catching lobs, defensive versatility. That's what you want to see from Jalen Smith. Those are the things that suits him. Whatever works out with the minutes, the position, whatever that he ends up playing, Jalen Smith could be. I'm not saying that he will, because, again, with this Bulls team, I'm waiting to see what we actually see on the court. But Jalen Smith could be one of those guys that helps this thing all work a little bit better, much like with Ayo Dosunmu, right? I've said Ayo's going to be the glue guy of this team. I think his ability to play 3 positions, the 2 guard positions and the small forward on that wing, it's all very important for that Ayo Dosunmu can have a huge role into why that 3-man lineup with Josh Giddey, Kobe White, and Zach LaVine work. right? Because he can play next to Kobe. We've seen that. He can play next to Zach. We've seen that. I don't really doubt the way that him and Josh Giddey can play together. And so if you can have a lineup to where you can have any three of those guys out there at any time, that maximizes the role that Ayo can play. But much like that with Jalen Smith can play the 4 next to Vooch. Now, I don't think you want to run him a lot at 4 because he's our only true backup big that we have on this roster. So he's going to have to play a lot of center minutes. But in the clinch, when you need it, whatever, he can play next to Vooch. He can play next to Patrick Williams, right? So because of the versatility there, it really makes sense. And if you put him out there, like imagine a lineup if you're running Josh Giddey, right? Either Zach or Kobe at the 2, but then you have Matas Bucelis at the 3. You have Julian Phillips at the 3 or 4, whichever one you play them at, and Jalen Smith at the 5. Listen, you talking about now you don't want to run that. I'm not saying that needs to be your lineup where you need to rely on a lot, but if there ever a time where all those guys are out there, watch it next. And even replace Josh Giddey with Lonzo. Even replace Josh Giddey and have Ayo there as a starter because Ayo was really good in the fast break. I'm telling you, that's a team that can yam it on some people's necks. So Jalen Smith having a role that fits him, the confidence, him talking about one of the reasons he came to the Bulls because of the opportunity, the fit, really like that. Next up, Matas Bucelis, but it's not because of the reason you think. Yes, we heard that Ayo Dosunmu said that Matas Bucelis was already turning heads with his athleticism. Apparently in the minicamp, he had a dunk that just wowed everybody. But the thing about Matas Bucelis that has caught my eye, that I'm putting it on the positive list, is that he's working with Peter Patton after practice to get up shots. That's the thing I'm going to give him. And the reason why I'm going to give him that is because Matas Bucelis, one of the negatives on this game, is three really big ones. Turnovers, but I don't think he's going to do a lot of the ball handling, but on-ball defense and his shooting. Working with Peter Patton is a big thing. Now, it may not pay off this season. It may, right? But I want to be clear here. Guys, don't start doing that thing of if Matas Bucelis shoots 28% from 3 this season, we're like, but what about Peter Patton? Oh, my God, he was It sometimes takes a year to really get the results out of working on your jump shot. So I'm just saying let's not start bitching. Let's give it some time, but I'm glad that he's working with Peter Patton early on. And then the last positive I'm going to sit on here is Kobe and Ayo Dosunmu stepping into leadership roles, but also the team embracing them as leaders, right? Zach LaVine has talked about Kobe and him growing as a leader, his voice growing over the years that he's been here, and it really all coming together this offseason. And I'm going to just be frank here. Yes, you can be a great leader, but you also have to have the people embracing your leadership. And Zach LaVine, being the longest tenured Bull, embracing that is going to go a long way of speaking to that locker room, right? Especially where there were some concerns or whatever of fit. Like Zach LaVine's always been a good teammate, but embracing a player that was your rookie to take over as the leader of what's supposed to be your team, that's a big step, right? And yes, it comes to some realizations for Zach LaVine. He's still going to get his shots on the court. That's probably why, but these two guys growing, hearing that these two guys are the ones that organized the minicamp in Miami, right? To hear that, to hear Ayo and Kobe taking Josh Giddey and Matas Bucelis under their wings, right? The way that they've talked about this team, the way that they've talked about the lessons they've learned from DeMar and Garrett Temple and these guys, like these are big things. And I think it's good seeing these two young players stepping into leadership roles. Now let's see the results of that as we go into the season. But I think it's really big that these guys are stepping up to that leadership void. And let's see what it gets out of and how it helps this team come together, because chemistry is one of the things that's always kind of hard to gauge how much that can help or hurt, if it's not good chemistry, your season. So we'll continue to see that. Now, things that we haven't heard much about, but I'm not really going to call them negatives or concerns yet, but we just haven't heard about them. Haven't really heard any talk about Kobe White and Josh Giddey and how they're fitting as a backcourt. Haven't really heard any of that. Now, that is one of the biggest questions coming into the season. And so the fact that we haven't heard about it, like I said, I have it on my list of things that, okay, we'll see because it gets on the court, right? And I think that's an important thing. The Zach, LaVine, Kobe fit, Zach and LaVine. The LaVine, Giddey, and Kobe fit are all important, right? And so we'll see how that develops over time. But it's just something that we haven't really heard a lot about of how that ball handling duty, sharing that is really working for this team when they're running the offense or things like that. How Josh Giddey's playing off ball, how Kobe's been playing off ball. But like I said, we'll see it soon enough. So, that's what it comes down to. Next one, what the fuck's going on with Nikola Vucevic, right? Like Vooch seemed really disengaged in media day comparatively to how he's been in previous years in media day. Also, when you hear things about like the play style and all that type of stuff, these are things that don't necessarily suit Nikola Vucevic to his skill set. So either they're going to really prioritize him in the half court to get him involved, or he's going to slowly be phased out, right? Nikola Vucevic could be one of the first casualties of a minutes change due to the play style and younger players stepping up. And we'll see how that develops for him, but we haven't really heard anything on Nikola Vucevic and how he's adapting to Josh Giddey, how he's adapting to the quicker play style. Going to a 14-second shot clock in practice for Nikola Vucevic, that I would be crazy interested to watch that. So that's another thing that comes down to it. Another thing that we haven't heard a lot about, and we didn't hear this year about Kobe really either. So again, not a concern, but a thing I'm waiting to see is how the young guys added to their game. Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, right? What if these guys added to their game this year, and have they shown some things that may give them the edge over veterans like Torrey Craig or others to get into that lineup, right? Haven't really heard a lot about Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips. A lot. We've heard a little bit, right? But we haven't heard a lot. And that's something I'm really interested to see once the games start on Tuesday. What do we see out of those players that may give any kind of indication that that they're ready for a larger role this season? So that's something that I'm looking out for. Last up on this list, progress on the last roster spot. Ernalot Batum, THT, Kenny Lofton Jr., EJ Liddell. These are the guys that we brought in here that are competing for that final roster spot. Or in the last two, Lofton Jr. and EJ Liddell, they're going to be on the G League. What's their story? How have they come into practice? What has that dynamic looked like between those guys that are all trying to show and prove that they deserve that final roster spot here for the Chicago Bulls? And again, it's something we'll see in game time once that starts. And I'm not too mad about that. But let me know your guys' thoughts down below. What are some of the biggest positives for you that you've heard so far out of training camp? What are some either signs for I'm not concerned yet. What are some signs for concern, or just some things that, hey, I need to hear a little bit more on this? Let me know that down below. With that said, it is Saturday, so that means it's Mailbag Day. We're going to get into these voicemails. We got 3 today. This one's from Shay.
Yo, Hayes, what's up? This Shay. Look, man, I'm going to have to set some things straight for a lot of these Bulls fans that's worried about this 3-guard lineup. Look, man, I understand everybody worried, but we don't necessarily have usual 3-guard lineup. Think about it. Josh Giddey is 6'9" tall. That's the size of most small forwards. Honestly, it's much better if he guards small forwards because nowadays, not a lot of small forwards are looking to score unless your name is Brandon Ingram. Kevin Durant is now playing the power forward spot. LeBron James is playing the power forward spot. You know, I think even PG-13 is now playing the power forward spot now that he's going to be in Philly. I know Kawhi Leonard is. Honestly, there aren't really a lot of the good small there aren't really a lot of small forwards in the league nowadays that are looking to score. Well, maybe Klay Thompson when he starts playing for the Dallas Mavericks. But that's just two that I name, and maybe Bradley Beal. Well, I don't know, because they might have Jones come up off the bench. But besides the point, there aren't a lot of small forwards that are looking to score. So I think Josh Giddey will be good when it comes to guarding the small forward spot. And then on offense, you can still let him run the offense. That's what I would do to hide his defensive efficiency. Now I know he said he's gonna work on his defense, but to hide him defensively, I think we should allow him to on defense play the small forward spot, but still let him do his point guard duties. But the whole point of this message, I don't think we necessarily have anything to worry about because let's think about it. Kobe White, 6'5", and he's getting better every year at the defensive end. We saw what he did against DeJounte Murray in that play-in game, and we already know what Ayo could do. So, and Zach LaVine, when he's motivated, he can definitely play good defense. On ball nonetheless, but I don't think we got nothing to worry about with the 3-guard lineup. Defensively. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
Josh Giddey guarding small forwards. Now, I get what you're saying in that and not worrying about the 3-guard lineup, but let me throw some actual numbers at you, right? Josh Giddey, when he has a defensive rating of 111.5 when guarding point guards, the league average for defensive rating, you want the lower number is 110. That's the league average. That means you're average at defending, right? Or having a positive, because defensive rating is still affected by the team. That's why it's not a great rating. It's not a perfect rating to use in a case like this. I mean, well, in all cases, but that's what he goes to. He has a defensive rating of almost 118 over his career guarding any other position but point guard. So if Billy Donovan is smart, he's going to have Josh Giddey on point guards. And then for you to say that there are not small forwards that score, let's go over this list real quick, Shay. DeMar DeRozan, Jason Tatum, Miles Bridges, Brandon Ingram, Jimmy Butler, Franz Wagner, Mikal Bridges, Michael Porter Jr., Keldon Johnson, Paolo Banchero, Jonathan Kuminga. These are all players that logged at least 48% of their minutes at the small forward position last season. So to say that there aren't small forwards that can score, I got to ask you, Shay, what basketball are you watching? Now, I get what you're getting at, though. Like, the clear thing is that in running a three-guard lineup, you're going to want to hide Josh Giddey potentially on the worst scorer on the team. So regardless, I can get what you're getting at with that. If you want to put Josh Giddey on the least scoring threat that you're worried out on that perimeter, that may be what Billy Donovan tries to do. Now, I would say this as well. Kobe grew as a defender. Zach LaVine can be good when he's locked in as a defender. So you got to try to hope that balance is going to overall work out. But, and we'll see. I do agree with you that whoever the worst scorer is, that is probably who Josh Giddey is going to be guarding. Now, the thing is that to say that you're not worried about the Bulls defensively, here's the thing. When head coach Billy Donovan keeps bringing up the concern of how bad they're going to be defensively, you should be worried about them defensively. And we'll see what they're like. Yeah, basketball games are going to get. A lot of my answers here over the next mailbag are here today and tomorrow because we get games on Tuesday. It's going to just be like we'll see soon, because we will see soon. Regardless of how I feel, how anybody else feels, we'll start seeing soon. Games are right around the corner. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one is from Todd.
What up, Hayes? It's Todd, man. It's been a minute, but I wanted to get my thoughts together. But I'm calling after your episode on Monday regarding the Knicks trade, man. And I'm from Chicago, born and raised, but I've been living in New York for 20 years, so I've been behind enemy territory, and I've been carrying the flag. I'm married to a Knicks fan, a born and raised Knicks fan. My son is raised here, and I'm trying to fight this fight that the Bulls should be something that he should pay attention to as he grows into his, teenage years. But it's real fucking hard, bro, when your team is just constantly inept. And I'm sitting here watching a team that I hate just completely run laps around us from the front office perspective. So watching that trade go down to send off Randall and send off Dante to get Cat, and we're just sitting here getting fucking Giddey, which I like, but no picks, and I'm still on that. I'm sorry, I'm still on it. It's not water under the bridge. And I'm sitting here hoping that all we could do is be bad enough to get to keep our top 10 pick. I mean, you put it perfectly. How we're, since 2021, we've only gotten worse. And these fuckers still have a job. And it's not the ownership, because James Dolan is a goddamn clown. But yet they keep getting better. And we keep getting worse. And it's like we just sitting here. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? That's us. And it's like I was going to leave a whole thing about how we got the biggest chip on our shoulder in the league, and maybe that'll push us into, a certain position. But it is the front office that is our problem. They get fixated on one thing. Oh, we got to get Giddey. We don't care if we can get a second round pick or a first round pick out of that. We just got to get Giddey in his final contract year, by the way. So we don't even have enough time to even assess him, so I'm just over it, bro. And I'm like, you say see red at the end of every show. See red if you can, y'all. You say that every show. I'm starting to get a little colorblind, bro, honestly. And I don't know if anybody else is feeling this way, but it's tough being a Bulls fan right now. What do you think, man? That's all. Talk soon.
Okay, Todd, and I agree with you, right? There's a difference between having a core to build around and trying to find your core. The New York Knicks, once they saw that window open up a little bit, they dived through it, right? They went all in to try to keep that window open as long as possible, and I love them for it, right? I hate the Knicks, but I love them for it. You got to give direction in how this team has done those things. Like, you got to give them a lot of credit. They've done it very well in how they've built their team. Now, I love that you made the point about ownership, it not being about ownership, because I tell you what, yes, the Knicks owner is stupid and he's an idiot, right? So, and you can say the same thing about Jerry Reinsdorf. People who go right to blaming ownership, I think they think that ownership is like what they see in movies like Any Given Sunday, or what they'll see in like their dramatic TV shows. For the most part, most owners are hands off on day-to-day operations. Now, I will say this: when you have an owner that just wants to win, they're more likely to move off guys right sooner rather than later. But where the Bulls are right now isn't because of ownership. It's because of the front office making bad decisions, bad draft choices, bad asset allocation, because Jerry Reinsdorf isn't. He's not smart enough to make the cap moves that need to be made. And so ownership has a place. And I'm not saying ownership is completely abstained, but I'll tell you what, there are more good franchises that have to overcome bad ownership than there are good franchises that are because their owners involved in the day-to-day. That just is what it is throughout all sports. And so, yeah, I mean, AK and Eversley got to be better. And like I've said before, they're going to still be in this job for another probably at least 5-6 years. And I hope that they're learning from their mistakes, because if they have not, man, we're in for a long time period here as Chicago Bulls fans. But great voicemail there, Todd. Let's get into this last one. This one's from Brian Washington.
What up, Hayes? This is D. Washington from the West Side. I was listening to your show about the media day and all that, and about the way the team is built. To me, I like the way the team built. I like the players and everything. To me, because it's still a 0-0 season right now. We don't know how this team is going to play. They might be good. They might stink, but I don't think any major changes should be made, because you just put this team together. You got to give them a chance to grow. So if they have a bad season, hey, you just work on what you need to work on next year. You know what I'm saying? But I think everything comes down, because the way this team is built is not bad. I like the players that they got, and I think they all going to do good. To me, and I'm going to keep saying this all year, it comes down to Billy Donovan. Preparing these players, developing these players, letting these players play. It's all gonna come down to him. It's you bring a coach like fucking San Antonio coach, he'll have these guys playing their ass off. So to me, it's gonna come down to Billy Donovan coaching the shit out of these guys, man. Because it's not a bad team. I'm a diehard Bulls fan, so I'm always gonna say and hope they're gonna have a great season. I'm not going to say they're going to be this bad, because, shit, I see a lot of teams with superstars are just as bad as the Bulls. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to say they're going to be a bad team. It's going to be how this team is coached. The way this team is built, a younger, maybe what Zach LaVine needs, maybe what Vooch needs. Vooch might need a young backup center to back him to rest him. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they need that. But it comes down to Billy Donovan and his coaching. He's got to coach the hell out this team, man. Or he's the one that needs to be changed, to me. Nothing else needs to be done but coaching. You're either going to coach your ass off or get the hell out of here. To me, that's it.
All right, I get what you're saying in being diehard, but you can be a diehard Bulls fan and still be realistic, right? And, yeah, I like a lot of what this team is too, but let's be clear here. Having good young players and having a team that you like doesn't necessarily mean success. Even you saying that there are teams with superstars that are, I wouldn't say they're worse off than the Bulls, but they have bad records. Yeah, so you're definitely right. This Bulls team with no superstars can very well have a chance of having bad records. Now, I do agree with you that coaching has an impact, right? Coaching can only get so much out of a certain talent level. And while, yes, coaching can elevate a roster, absolutely, has Billy Donovan shown any ability to be that coach? Like, I don't think Billy Donovan elevates. He at times he can get the most, like get more out of certain players in certain positions and skill sets. But I think whereas some coaches, like a Eric Spoelstra is somebody that you expect to get the most out of the roster that he has there. Billy Donovan is somebody that the roster has to get the most out of what his play style, what his system is. That's why we always say things like, well, Billy Donovan's system looks a lot better when he has a point guard that's running it at a high level, right? So I think that difference in things kind of brings that different view. But maybe the assistant coaching changes that. Maybe bringing in Wes Unseld, bringing in Dan Craig, right? Two guys that maybe are helping this Bulls team kind of get into a better place, and maybe even can help shore up some of the limitations Billy Donovan has. Maybe that's the right thing to see and do, and we'll see, right? Hopefully that's my hope here, is that, him already turning over parts of the defense to Wes Unseld Jr., these guys both being really good at player development. Let's hope that they bring something that we've kind of been missing for the last few years from Billy Donovan and the assistant staff that he had at that time. But again, that still comes down to Billy Donovan being aware enough to letting those guys as assistant coaches have big voices, big roles, and cook. So let's hope that that's the case. But guys, thank you so much for spending your Saturday with me and joining me here at Chicago Bulls Central. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.